Hello, my name is Mariana, and I work on the BC Active Transportation Grants Program within the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. During this video, you'll learn more about what is needed to prepare an infrastructure grant application. I'll cover some important topics that include more details about the infrastructure grant itself, what you should have ready before you apply, a walkthrough of the application, and where to go if you need more information. As you know, active transportation is the term we use for all human-powered transportation. That includes e-bikes, regular bikes, walking, and wheeling. Active transportation infrastructure is publicly accessible structures and areas that support these modes of transportation. This can include multi-use paths, separated bike lanes and sidewalks, pedestrian overpasses, and other amenities such as secure bike parking. Infrastructure that is safe and accessible for all ages and abilities promotes the use of active transportation for recreation and for travel to and from work, school, transit, or other destinations. The longer-term goals of the grant program is to improve health outcomes, increase environmental and economic benefits, and provide network connections throughout the community and beyond. The BC Active Transportation Design Guide was created to be a resource that supports best practice planning to help your community achieve these long-term goals. In fact, including the use of the design guide in an infrastructure grant application increases the possible score, as that demonstrates the use of a known and tested standard for AT infrastructure. The BCAT grant funding is based on a cost-shared model. While we may fund up to 80% of a project for Indigenous or Indigenous and partner projects, we do not cover the cost of the whole project. These grants are stackable, which means you can apply for other provincial, federal, or regional grants to support the funding of the project. In order to be considered for infrastructure grant funding, and before you complete the application, you'll have to have a number of documents ready to demonstrate the project is shovel-ready. A detailed checklist is available as part of the application and will be reviewed again near the end of this informational video. Some of the highlights include a detailed cost estimate, detailed design drawings, project-specific maps, before photos of the project, summary of community or Indigenous consultations to show community support, council, board, or band council resolution or draft resolution, and if drafted, it will have to be received no later than December 1st, 2022 for the project to be eligible. Before you apply, you will also need the following as listed on this slide. We'll go over this in more detail on the following slide. All projects must be shovel-ready before they can be considered for grant funding. That means that they must have all funding secured, including other grant funding. The project design work must be complete and included in the application. All land purchases or exchanges must be complete before construction starts. Permits and access for right-of-ways must be in place and approved, if this applies. Any applicable environmental approvals are complete, as are any community consultation. Community engagement is key to the success of any AT project. And if needed, consultation with large vehicle operators along the proposed route must be complete to ensure that new infrastructure does not impede larger vehicles. Now, I will go through a step-by-step overview of the AT infrastructure grant application. I will go over contact information, eligibility requirements, project types, economic and environmental benefits, project costs, and more. We hope this process will be helpful to outline what is needed for the application and give some insight into the process. This section, contact information, is quite straightforward and asks for the applicant information, primary contact details, and what type of government the grant will be for. The categories, Indigenous, Municipal, Islands Trust, Regional District, or electoral area of a regional district, Indigenous Economic Development Corporation, represents the types of governments that can apply for an AT infrastructure grant. You'll also have to provide the latest, as of 2021, census population count for your community. The BC Active Transportation Infrastructure Grant provides funding of up to $500,000 per project. Depending on your community, you may be eligible for between 50 to 80% of your project funded. Indigenous governments and or Indigenous governments that partner with a local government may receive up to 80%. Communities with a population less than 15,000 may receive up to 70%. Communities with a population between 15,000 and 25,000 may receive up to 60%. And communities that are 25,000 and over may receive up to 50% of their project funded. These are all up to a maximum of 500,000. Our goal is to have an equitable distribution of funding around the province. The eligibility section will help determine if your project is eligible for consideration for this year's intake of the BCAT Infrastructure Grants Program. Communities may make up to 2 applications for separate projects in one intake period. If your community has received any previous funding through either Bike BC, the previous iteration of this program, or BC Active Transportation Grants Program, these projects must be complete before any new applications are made. This section references this requirement for now and for consideration in the future in 3.1 and 3.3. The project must also be part of a larger active transportation network plan, cycling network plan, transportation plan, greenways plan, sustainability plan, or official community plan. If your community does not have an AT network plan, and if your population is under 25,000, please refer to the BCAT Network Plan information video and forms to apply for an AT network planning grant. Is the project shovel ready? These requirements were covered earlier in this information video. Do you have all the necessary project funding secured? Remember, this includes any cost-shared funding. Is the detailed design work complete? These designs will be required for submission with your application and must be done by an engineer or an engineer tech. A reminder that the BC Active Transportation Design Guide provides best practice design support for AT infrastructure, and its use is a consideration when applying for an infrastructure grant. Is a project for the public? This funding is for public facilities only. The application should indicate if any project land is adjacent to reserve land, and in that case, does it have Indigenous endorsement? More details about what that endorsement may include are available in the Indigenous Engagement Guide linked on the website. You must indicate if the proposed project includes any agricultural land reserve property, and if so, do you have the approval of the Agriculture Land Reserve? Has all the property needed for the project been acquired, and are all necessary permits in place? Are any environmental approvals required, and have community consultations been conducted? These documents will be required for the application. For large vehicle routes such as BC Transit or emergency vehicles, have these entities been consulted, and have they approved? Finally, usage counts will be required to demonstrate the use of the new infrastructure before and after it's completed. If your project is only for AT, furniture, or end-of-trip facilities, this isn't needed. It isn't uncommon for applications to not include some key eligibility requirements such as permits, Indigenous authorization for on-reserve land, or property acquisition. In these cases, applications are deemed ineligible, but can be reconsidered the following year, providing the necessary documents are included. Section 4 is all about identifying the project type. Include a project title and check out the BC Active Transportation Design Guide as needed. Indicate if this is a new project or an upgrade to an existing infrastructure. Section 5 is the project overview. As this can be quite detailed, the application form has a supplement that can include more information if needed. We would like to know the project type, as discussed previously, the location or start and end points, and the total length, if applicable. What types of physical work, such as lighting, automated counters, or fencing, will be a part of the project? As referenced in the land acquisition or approval section for eligibility, is there any land that is included in the project that is not owned by the community applicant? Once built, will the community maintain the infrastructure? And if not, who will be maintaining it? How will you fund any cost overruns should the project go beyond the estimated budget? This is important as the grant program itself doesn't provide additional funding. Section 5.6 is asking for the baseline usage data unless the project is furniture or end-of-trip facilities. This will help determine the success of the future use of the infrastructure. To help with this, there is a usage count form in the application that can serve as a guide. Improving safety for active transportation users is critical to encouraging more people to choose this mode over other GHG-intensive modes such as cars. Section 6 is all about how the project improves safety. The AT Design Guide focuses on safety and should be used for project design. It includes a number of options and guidelines for projects that support safety improvements. We also want to understand if the project is responding to existing safety concerns and how this will be monitored after the completion of the project. Physical separation of AT facilities from other motorways greatly increases safety and encourages use. Section 6.4 asks for those details. Other safety measures, such as lighting, signage, and the maintenance plan, can be included in Section 6.5. And Section 6.6 looks for the width of AT facilities to ensure they meet the AT Design Guide standards for safety. Section 7 on economic and environmental benefits is an opportunity to highlight these elements of the project. This includes the benefits from the project itself to tourism, local businesses, and new businesses. Also, how will the project impact the environment, such as tree removal, replacement, or preservation? Often, improved AT facilities should increase AT use and reduce the use of greenhouse gas emitting modes. What is the estimated GHG reduction? This is important for government to understand as we work to meet our own GHG reduction targets found in the Clean BC Roadmap to 2030. As mentioned in the AT Network Plan information video, AT infrastructure works best when it's part of a connected network. Section 7.7 through to 7.11 ask for more details regarding how this project will connect with other modes of transportation, community locations, other AT facilities, and is it part of a larger federal or municipal plan? Universal design and inclusion for people of differing abilities and genders is important when designing any AT infrastructure. For example, improved lighting can make AT safer for those who feel less safe traveling at night. Ramps, audible walk signals, and flashing lights help people with different physical abilities access active transportation. There are resources to learn more about the provincial considerations for GBA+, which is Gender-Based Analysis Plus, or AT Design Guide accessibility requirements. Cost estimates for infrastructure require detail, so now we will dive into these requirements. For that reason, and because we need to understand these costs, the application includes a detailed cost estimate worksheet. It includes information about Class A to C costs, which are eligible costs, forecasted eligible costs to construction, and the 20% allowable contingency. A reminder that Class A costs are defined as the detailed estimate based on final drawings and specifications. Class B is cost based on the project brief and preliminary design for project approvals and budget. Class C are costs based on probable site conditions and are prepared with limited site information. Once the cost estimates are done, the project costs can be provided. Section 8 is used to determine the maximum grant amount you can request. First, either the dollar amount of your total estimated project cost. This is A. Then, based on the list of eligible expenses for the grant program found in the program guidelines, enter the total estimate eligible project cost, which is B. The next slide provides more detail on eligible expenses. This may be the same or lower than your total estimated project cost. Then, enter the dollar amount of any third-party contributions or in-kind donated contributions. A third party is any person or organization other than the province who is providing funding towards the project. In-kind or donated contributions includes volunteer labor, services, space, or materials that are provided for free or below market value. Note that the Federal Gas Tax Community Works Fund is not considered a third-party contribution because it is part of the local government's general revenue. Finally, submit the third-party contribution from the total estimated eligible project cost, that is B minus C. To determine the grant amount you are able to request, identify your cost share percentage in Section 2 and multiply it by the total found in D. Insert that number or 500,000, whichever is less. We also want to understand how your project costs will be spent over the current and next fiscal year. Please enter that information in Section 9. The grant program funds specific eligible expenses. These include infrastructure, materials, and labor. Eligible expenses are project costs spent between October 21st, 2022 and the project completion date. Of interest, eligible expenses include active transportation amenities like washrooms and end-of-trip facilities like bike parking. For more information, refer to Section 2.1 and 2.2 in the program guidelines. Section 10 is a document checklist to ensure you submit a complete application. Incomplete applications will be deemed ineligible for funding. In addition to the required documents, other documents may be submitted depending on your project context. If necessary permits or environmental approvals are not in place, an application may be deemed ineligible. Review resources as stated in this order. All forms and documents are available on the website. I hope this video has provided some good information and insight as you begin your application. If you have any other questions, you can check out the frequently asked questions section on the website, or don't hesitate to contact us direct at capital B, capital C, capital A, capital T, lowercase grants, all one word at gov.bc.ca, or give us a call at 778-974-5469. Your success benefits all of British Columbians, and we want to make sure your active transportation infrastructure works for your community. Thank you.